Okay, morning guys. So let me know if you can hear me okay, and I'll rip into it. Pretty sure it's coming through clear. More my husky voice after the weekend, actually. Hope we all had a good weekend also. Had some time to relax. We had a pretty good weather down here, so it was a good day on Saturday for anyone that's an AFL fan. Wasn't the best of games, to be honest, but yeah, it was quite an easy game for old Richmond. G'day, John. All right, let's get going. So we had on Friday night the market. Well, the European was actually quite high. Quite high. They had ended the week on a positive note. They did quite well. Now that was more on the back of sort of some positive news or positive expectations for trade. But it wasn't only until later on when I think the US announced that they're potentially taken off or going to delist some Chinese companies on US exchanges. So that's pressured that, and I think there was also news that Chinese officials were talking up the UN General Assembly, basically having a bit of a swipe at the US and their tactics for trade, saying they're unfair. So that's pressured the US later on, which you can see by the DAX after hours, which is here. Let me just get that up. The DAX after hours dropped. So here we go. That's not at all what I wanted, was it? Drop that. Let's try that one more time. Oh, here we go. So this is the DAX, and that's around 8:30. So you can see that the European market's doing quite strong. The pound was coming under pressure too, which helped the export sort of heavy FTSE. G'day, Daniel. Yeah, export heavy FTSE. So that helped buoy the FTSE and other markets over in Europe. But then it wasn't until later on. I think it was about the open of the US at 11. This candle here, basically 11:30. And then news must have hit around the 1:30, 1 o'clock mark, somewhere around there that, on trade. So that's really sent the DAX further down. So when they close, they're probably expecting a drop. They closed around 1:30, I think it was. So they're closing around here. It was up towards 12,360. And yeah, so it's probably about a 50 point drop. I think the DAX was up about 70 or so. So they're pretty much back to break even. You would expect on the open tonight. As after the US pressure, which a lot of the actual index didn't see. So yeah, that was pretty much a Friday night. The US was down. We're expecting on the ASX, you can see this is a 4 o'clock close. It was somewhere around 66.94 on the SPY, and the markets popped up with a solid European session, took out that high at around 66.11, and then pretty much dropped. So you were expecting it to open up 10. But it's the usual fun and games on the open, which looks like this is the first. We just opened then, as we spoke. It looks like the usual fun and games, a bit of a flush on the open. So you expect an open down 10 on the ASX. Potentially, it's going to open. Yeah, it's not going. It's going to open flat with the way the SPY is acting at the moment. But the first 10 minutes or so on the SPY is just setting a position. It's cleaning out overnight positions from potentially Friday or overnight when it's during the week. Just flushing those out, cleaning them out, putting traders back on the sidelines, triggering stops, and then starting to pick a direction once the ASX opens. You got the meat of the move, probably about 5, 6, 7 past 10. Once the meat of the move comes out on the ASX200, just to see how funds are placing themselves, what are they doing? They're willing to buy into shares, they're willing to let it go for a bit, ease out. Who knows what's happening? So we'll see how that ASX opens. But actually, I'll get the chart on the ASX. Let me just get that. Minimize that. We've got the ASX here now. So this is TradingView that anyone uses this. Pretty good little package. I've just started really getting into it a bit more lately. All right, so this is a chart we put up on Friday. There's potential for this to start edging below, down towards sort of these low area, although it's going to take some sort of move by the US, I would expect, off the highs. And the US on Friday night, you remember they had numbers. They're still looking towards economic data, and they had some half decent economic data in. Now what was it? I don't remember. It was buoyant economic data, but they also had some negative consumer data out, and that's sort of the biggest concern. If that starts slowing, then US growth could start slowing. They're looking sort of further down the track with current data coming out. And most of it, any sort of negative data, if it's focused around consumers and consumer spending, then that might be cause for concern over in the US, and that's what came out. So the negative data, I think, which knocked it on the head a bit on the open around 10:30, it come out. Yeah, about 10:30. So it pressured the market on the open, and it pressured the dollar too. So negative news like that on the consumer, say on economic data, is going to pressure the dollar lower. You would expect, because they're looking potentially at rate cuts into the US, but I can't remember what the actual positive data. I'm just trying to remember now. I've probably got it somewhere, but anyway. So if that's the case, the US dollar starts to come under a bit of pressure. So the US markets start to come under a bit of pressure. And don't forget, you still talk of Trump impeachment. There's quite a few negative factors out there at the moment, which I think could pressure the market. But again, look at the SPY. SPY still hovering around here. Now, if this continues to stick around current levels, it's 91 or so. That's only a few points higher. It's only about 10 points higher. We're expecting this SPY would open 10 points down, but that, if it holds around these levels, it's pretty much negated. So you would expect the SPY to open roughly flat. So the ASX200 open roughly flat. We'll see how other markets go. And so this is what I'm looking at, longer term patterns. If this plays out, it could just chop around here. You might get a bit of a sell off here, then find support again, higher low, push back up to the top end of the range. Well, if that could, something like that, that could possibly be what we're looking at. All these are out of whack at the moment. Or if you start to push down, you hold a lower high, that's, to me, it's going to signify a bigger sell-off. And the bigger sell-off is from high to low here, and taking that as a high. If that ends up being the high towards, somewhere around 62 or so, could be a sell-off if we get this major lower high. But if we just get chop around in longer term, I think that's more buoyant than anything else, because that means that's going to take some time. This is a daily. This is a 4-hourly chart. Let me just get to a daily. If this is your daily chart and we get this sort of pattern where you consolidate between, more contraction between the buyers and sellers, as in they're coming to some sort of point of agreement, that's going to take some time to play out on the daily. And you're going to get these little, spikes lower, pop back up, spike lower. If the buyers are still hanging in there, they're just waiting to buy into some negative strength off that support zone. If that's the case, it's going to take some time. I'd say we'll be through what's going to happen in the US. But right where it is at the moment, don't forget we got October 10th, 11th. So what are we, about 10 days or so? In about 10 days, the talks between China and the US start. And now, the way it's looking as of Friday and over the weekend, it's not looking too great for a deal to be done. And that could pressure market. And that's what we might see over the coming week or so, is that if there's more sort of negative news from either Trump or his administration, or from China talking up, they want the US to be more compliant or come to some sort of agreement, just this talk back and forward, I would expect that to pressure markets a bit. And that could set us for a bit of a drop. Just depends what else sort of triggers the US lower, if that's the case. Now, let's just go to other markets. Aussie dollar. No, I did it again, didn't I? Here we go. Aussie dollar, it's well contained at the moment. And any sort of negative news on trade, which is what you get the sell-off from, it's going to be capped. I would expect it to continue to be capped. We'll see how that plays out, but that's, got some support down at 6,700, 6,750, sorry. If that holds, I think we're going to be range bound until something happens on the back of trade. But at least we're going to be capped. I mean, don't forget cutting rates. If we're continuing to talk about cutting rates and we've got bad negative data out of Aussie economic data, then that's going to be capping our market on the Aussie anyway for a while yet. Euro's on its way south, has been for a while now. It's holding lower highs. You can see the pressures coming in. It's just this pop through with our bid zone marked up. And this is something we did a video on TradingView, so feel free to jump on there and have a look at what we're popping out there. I was either on trade_setup if you search that, or you search Braden G. I can't remember which one it was, which is my own. I can't remember if I put a video out in the Euro. But anyway, you'll find something on one of those two. So yeah, market's still pressing down. So if we hold a lower high here, you would expect this low to be taken out. The way it popped back up and it's stalled below the key anchor at the moment, the key anchor to this downtrend is around 109.65. The fact that hasn't broken, it's still below it, we could see some further pressure. And the momentum starting to ease as well. You're getting sort of that overbought territory. So there's a few factors. If momentum stalls at a lower level, it just shows that sellers are still willing to jump in at sort of these below these levels around 109.65. We'll see how that goes. Euro pound, the last one we'll just look at quickly. Just waiting to see how the SPY goes. Pound, it's still under pressure, and that's got Brexit concerns. Now it is down at these lows. It's not a key level. It was just a bid zone where we might expect start to form. And it's just, you can see that the market's pressed down this zone, consolidated, washed it out, and held a higher level, started to push up, cleaned out this zone around 123 or 12400. It's just cleaned straight through that zone, so it's really washed out any stops that might have been under there, any stops that might have been under this level here at 124.15, and it's starting to attack this zone. But the problem is it's expanded down through it, popped back up, held a lower level, pushed back through it. So at the moment it is hovering around that zone, but it could easily plow lower. Then you've got levels potentially that you want to see some sort of reaction off at 122.36. Now these levels are not hard and fast. And what I'm going to talk about later in the stream at 12:30 is the way I believe you should be attacking levels, as opposed to, it's just trading execution as opposed to what happens around those levels. Levels only going to be confirmed after the fact, and you've got to be wary of that with your entry criteria. And I just wanted to put up an example of what I found on Twitter over the weekend. I thought it's interesting to talk, and I think it's a standard way of the way people, say this level, for instance, they're looking at that level, expecting it to be a level. Okay, I'll just I'll put my buy just above it, and I have a stop below. Now that, to me, that's just wrong, because that doesn't say anything. You don't know what's happening at that level up until you get there. You don't know what's going to happen until you get some sort of reaction. And if you don't get a reaction, it's probably going to plow through, and it's going to get you in straight back out again. So I think there's a way, if you can adjust your setups and what you're looking for off levels, which is going to dramatically improve trading. We'll talk about that at 12:30. Oh, Daniel, I know might have some charts. If he's happy for me to put them up, I'll put them up. If not, just let me know, mate. All right, we've got US dollar yen. Quickly have a look at that. That's been grinding higher. And that's more of a safe haven. The more talk about something happening between China and the US, the less safe haven buying into the yen and more probably safe haven selling. So the US actually, the yen was pushing higher, even though the US dollar was pushing lower. So the only way I could see that that's doing that is if they're selling the yen a bit harder, and it's dragging that pair up, because the yen. Fantastic, Matt Narrows, I'll do that. So the yen had sort of selling across the board. So you can see it in other pairs, pound yen, Aussie yen. You can see that was sort of grinding lower. It's more, so if you sort of got that general yen selling, it's going to start to buoy this pair, US pair. So the US dollar was actually, I think most of the session it spent European session heading south, and turned around and bounced slightly coming to the US session, and pretty much held onto that bounce, or held onto that slight gains into the US close. So that's pretty much it. Well, I'm hitting the wrong button every day, aren't I? There we go. Try that again. So that's it, isn't it? Dow. I'll look at the S&P. So they've opened up a bit. They opened up stronger today, but sold straight off. That's the Dow futures. So it's interesting to see how they're trading. That's complete chop. You can see this is what we've spoken about quite a few times. It's got this good leg up. So this is what you want to see. Market consolidate, had a leg up, consolidate the highs, go again. Trade off a high low, off you go. But now these sessions, time after time, it's just whippy. It's absolute chop at the moment. So it's a real tough one to negate and to navigate. And it just makes any sort of intraday or holding longer term also, because if you're going to hold longer term, and one day you're looking good, the next day you're looking not so good, the next day is good, next day is not so good. The way the US is chopping around, and it's the moment it seems to be news driven. So if we're focusing on, and I think it's focused on not so much the impeachment, like we were saying, I think I was reading somewhere, the government will still run with or without Trump, but a trade war that's going to continue to crimp the economy. So that's sort of the key thing at the moment, is what's going to happen between China and the US. We said many times, I think, even though they can talk it up, I don't think anything's going to happen anytime soon. Don't think they're going to come to any sort of arrangement in the 10th and 11th of this month. And I think that's going to continue to drag out. Doesn't matter what either side said. I think they've got underlying agendas. It's just, how does Trump react? Because he's kind of volatile compared to what China's, their approach. And if he doesn't get what he wants, it seems to chuck a bit of a Twitter tantrum and react. And generally, if it doesn't get what he wants, he's reacting with tariffs or something else, which is going to drive this market lower, I would expect. And it's sort of at that key level. If this chops around here for the next few days, holds lower highs again, it could easily drive through that and really wash out. Because anyone that's been buying it through here, a bigger position, is probably going to have stops under this zone. You know, this is only on a half-an-hour chart. Let's take a look at the daily. And you still see it's starting to ease into that zone. If we could lift off here, great. It's probably going to take out and trade into all-time highs, new all-time highs, which it just missed out on a few days ago on the 12th of September or thereabouts. But if it can't hold up here, there might be a bit of a stop trigger and a bit of a run to the lows or further lower. Again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Let's just go. So that's it. Let's just see where the ASX is opening. So the SPY is holding. ASX is only a few minutes open at the moment. It's only down 3, so look for probably to be down 5 soon, and then it start to lift if this SPY doesn't move. But if this holds down around the 10 mark, then it's roughly where the SPY should revert back to where it closed. You know, somewhere around 10.70, 80, yeah, about 10 points lower, thereabouts. But yeah, keep an eye on that, guys. What I'm just, as I touch on the SPY, what I'm looking at is this. Even though it washed that zone out, it's plowed through. And don't forget, the SPY is very thin after hours, so it's quite easily to take out zones by more than just a couple of points. During the day, when it's a bit more liquid, a washout, it's probably 1, 2, 3 points. It's not so much, you know, 5, 10 points. What was that? So 67.11 up to 25, so it's about a 14-point spike. But it's come plowing straight back down, so it has fallen back down through that zone as the US is open and sold all the way off. So you can see, you know, on the upside, it's probably squeezed out some of these stops that may have built up on the short side, squeezed them out, even bought in some buyers. Many times people might have a wider stop buy on the break there with stops below here, and straight away they're in and put under pressure. So it's either squeezed out some short stops, you know, that had buys above there, buy on stop triggers to exit, squeezed them out and squeezed in some longs who are potentially fueled to get squeezed out on the downside. So it is choppy and it's washing each side of the market. But this could potentially be a resistance zone, and you get a lower high. If we get a lower high form today and we start to edge lower, that brings 61 under attack and 46 and down to 34, potentially going to move down. And that would be a key lower high over the last few days. And that market, you'd expect our ASX to be under pressure. I think there's a lot of news out at the moment which makes sense for it to be under pressure, but it's just what the bulls want to do. You know, and we're holding sort of down 3 points at the moment. So we'll see how we go, guys. Have a good day. Sorry, I'll just go back to what I would be looking at on the SPY. Again, it all comes down to just seeing how this market reacts. And during the day, it's been, you know, lately it's been rubbish. You know, if we can sort of do something like this on a bigger time frame, there might be a short come out, and then you get this sort of reaction lower. But otherwise, we literally could just open here, edge down, find a bid, edge back up, you know, just whip around like we have during the day a few times now. Our market looks content to chop around during the day sessions and then whip out highs and lows overnight as we get more of a clearer direction of what's happening. I don't think there's too many people willing to load up into the ASX right now. It's okay having long positions they're setting up because they are still triggered. You get an update, you get some good quality longs, you know, some share positions that are trading well. We've got a couple of good ones that are ticking off, but I'm not going to load up fully, and they're going to be prime setups. And I'm happy also to take some risk off fairly quickly. I'm not going to be mucking around with the partial, letting it ride, because this is not conducive to really bullish action. Let's just look at the ASX again, intraday on the 30. So this is a 1 minute chart at the moment. I just want to get up to a 30 or 5 minute chart. So that 30, you know, it's an each way bet at the moment. Just have to wait and see. market sort of rolling over. This could be a higher low, or if we hold below this 67.20 or this high, we could roll over and it could easily be a lower high. The trend is down at the moment. MACD is down. This is only a 30, don't forget. Prime position on the stochastics. So we're sort of overcooked compared to this level. Who knows? Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Down 2, it seems to be hovering around that break-even mark. All right, guys, enjoy your day. We'll call it quits there. Be back in at 12:30. A couple of charts to show, a few things to talk about. Feel free to join us on the same YouTube channel, and we'll see how it plays out for the day. All right, guys, enjoy your day. See ya. Bye.